What are some interesting ways of catching a coyote, maybe in the summertime or the wintertime? So when we have carcasses, for example, something been found dead, or we kill it ourselves because it has to be euthanized. Do we ever use the carcass to pull in a coyote or any unwanted predators?
No.
Hey, you've got a handy dandy little tool that you've been using a couple years ago.
No, not necessarily on purpose. I mean, we have like every other place has a bone pile, a
Yeah.
place where you deposit dead animals, and the coyotes eat them up, the birds eat them up, all kinds of stuff, and they decompose, and Hakuna Matata. We got the natural cycle of life. But yeah, there's sometimes when they get a little too many coyotes, then you throw something out there, particularly calves in the spring. If you lose a calf, take it out there, dump it, and then you can come back. You better hurry, because I've seen carcasses in 3 days, 4 days, they're gone. I mean, they're just
Yeah.
stripped clean. So you go out there and you can sit and maybe try to reduce the coyote population a little bit. But it's kind of incidental. I mean, we know they're there, but we could just as easily just ignore it too, and not go
Right.
out and try to shoot a coyote. So try to thin them out.
The other thing would be, so a great example is down in the South, they have a horrendous wild pig
Oh,
issue.
yeah, it's
And,
an infestation. It's bad.
and you'll see same thing, a calf is found dead or something, or an event occurs where you have to euthanize the animal and they're like, hey, we took a loss, but we'll use it towards something for like the hogs or something like that. Sometimes those guys will also either poison the carcass. I don't know. You have a license for that, especially for the prairie dogs. So you would be able to speak better to poisoning something. But then the other thing would be like tannerite, something
Right.
explosive. Would you ever
Yeah.
do that to a carcass?
No, probably not. I mean, and using poison is not something that is allowed. They used to poison carcasses with strychnine,
Okay,
and then coyotes would eat it, and then it poisoned them. But the problem with it is it killed a lot of birds, eagles, unintended types of species
sure.
that it killed.
Scavengers.
Yeah, and so not a good thing to do. I mean, it found as like now you're poisoning a bunch of animals, and those are spreading, and then
Yeah.
other things are eating them, and it's got a ripple effect. So, and strychnine it's deadly stuff. I mean, it is way bad. So they use that at the turn of the century, in the 20s, 10 teens. I mean, you could get strychnine. I think you could buy that stuff pretty easily and put it in a carcass and do that. Especially sheepmen used to do it for coyotes, lose sheep, and then they lace a carcass with strychnine. But because of that, that's been all outlawed. Uh, what I do with what I'm licensed to do is with a prairie dog issue, uh, get some like aluminum phosphide tablets, and you put them down the hole, and then you cover the hole so nothing can get to it, and then it creates basically it gases the prairie dogs and kills them in the hole, and they're buried. Nothing can get to them. And you got to be careful with that. You have to first check that you're not near any waterways, or
Mm,
places where it could seep into, or animals could be around, like swamps, or uh, call them not necessarily the riparian areas, on riparian areas too, but there's a site you can go to and say, hey, is this part of this area where it's restricted, and you can't put it on there. If you do, then okay, but you can also, you have to warn people. You got to put flags up and let people know the area that, there's, if they've wandered in there, that you're using this stuff, even though it's down underground. So it's very well controlled, very well restricted, and you got to follow those labels. You can't screw around with that stuff. People, they've had little kids in a house where these bait things were thrown around the outside, and that gas seeped into the house in the basement
Mm.
and killed kids in their sleep at night.
Oh,
Bad, it's
okay.
bad way to go.
Yeah. But you said like you'd never use tannerite or anything like that either. Is there a particular reason for that?
Just the humanity of it, I guess.
Sure.
If you put a deal of tannerite out and a coyote comes up to it and you hit it and it blows up, will it kill him? It might maim him. If I'm going to kill something, I want to kill it. I don't want to
Yeah.
euthanize it. I'm not trying to maim something or injure it. So I just don't think that's right. I just don't like doing that.
Yeah.
All there's some value to life, even if that animal's not valuable or they're detrimental to you. I mean, it's
Sure.
kind of some ethical ways to do things.
Now the next part would be like you've got a calf potentially that maybe that coyote killed it because it was a brand new calf, or it just, it died for whatever reason and that coyote is within the herd. How do you normally go about trying to remove the coyote without causing further harm to the herd?
Well, sometimes you can't. I've went out at 2 a.m. to check heifers in the corral, and here's a coyote in the corral. I've got lights on out there, and I'm
Yeah,
watching other stuff, and they're on like a night light, big halogen type. And I walk out, and he hasn't seen or heard me yet because still in the dark. And here's a coyote wandering around in through those heifers, looking for afterbirth or calves.
right.
And you want to shoot it, and I a lot of times I'll take a rifle with me, but then I'm like, okay, I got heifers here. I got heifers there. I got bulls over here on another fence.
That
I
over
got
here.
horses that can be over here. You're surrounded, especially right close in the corrals. But if it was an opening and that nothing around on either right behind that coyote in our herd, yeah, I'd take a crack at him. Why not?
What would be more beneficial for something like that then? Would it be more of like a shotgun approach or going with still a rifle?
Yeah, it's hard to get some coyotes and shotguns usually don't mix.
Yeah,
Slugs would put them down out of a shotgun, but
not
I'm
do
gonna
anything.
do yeah, exactly. But I'm gonna true a varmint gun of some sort. 220, 222, 250, 243, something like that. That's
Yeah.
gonna be effective and fast and not overkill. You don't need to go after a coyote with a 7 mm Magnum.
Yeah. The other thing, well, first off, you'd have to assume that the 7mm Magnum doesn't actually like take 5 seconds of flight time to get to never mind. The next question would
Or
be,
30-30, yeah.
yeah, do you ever try and trap coyotes or anything like that?
I haven't. I would snare a coyote if I could, but the problem is we have our own dogs around here, and I'd put them in a
Yeah.
spot where they would be traveling, and
Yeah.
where they're coming in, and because they do come into water, so that's a really good, easy way to do that. We've got we've got some barn cats they don't really come around you too much, but they're fixed and they do a job. They could
Right.
get caught in those snares as well. So I just don't like trapping if I right next to the corrals here and stuff. And otherwise, if some of those rim rocks, if we had those, I might put some snares up in there and where nothing's going to get to them.
Sure. And I guess the next question with that is how much experience do you have with trapping? Because I have zero trapping or snaring. How much do you have?
I got a little bit. Did some in high school with some friends of mine. Those were mostly beaver and muskrats. But then as a warden, I learned some techniques
Oh,
and
sure.
what to look for and how to. And I got a good friend of mine he's really good he's a good bobcat trapper, especially he does that. Coyotes are tough. You got to sometimes boil those traps to get the scent off of them and use rubber gloves. If you touch them, you know how a dog's nose is. They're like, nope, out of here. So I know guys that are pretty good coyote trappers too, and that to me that's impressive. It's very impressive.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, that's all I got, man. So with that, we'll take that conversation and put it out to pasture.